Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, we're often told that we need to de-stress, to calm down, to practice things like meditation, mindfulness, and even get out those essential oils which are supposed to boost us and make us, well, less stressed and in a calm state. Now, this is something that's often been thrown at me, and my lovely partner, the lovely Julia, has often said we should get some essential oils and have a go and understand what it's all about. And I'm often, being a typical bloke going, oh yeah, that sounds a great idea. And then we never get round to it. So I thought it would be a good idea to find somebody to talk to about essential oils and find out how they can be beneficial to us, and about mindfulness and in meditation as well. And fortunately, the lady that I've got coming onto the show today has a number of books out, and she very kindly sent me two of them, which I will leave links to in the description. Essential Oils for Mindfulness and Meditation, and Healing with Essential Oils. And it also tells you how to go about making them yourselves, which sounds excellent. So, without further ado, my guest today is Heather Dawn Godfrey. She is an essential oil therapist, and she is a practitioner and obviously an author as well. And she joins me now. Hello, Heather.
Hello. Good afternoon, Richard. Thank you
Good
for
afternoon.
inviting me.
It's a pleasure, and I can see you there sitting with all your essential oil information, books, and what have you.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah. I'm in my studio, so yes, I'm in situ.
fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on the show. And as I said at the beginning, this is something that Julia and I have often talked about. And I mean, Julia more so than me, being a woman. And she says, no, Richard, this will be good. We go down the rabbit hole. We talk about all sorts of things. And sometimes we get a bit worried. And she says, we really should explore all of this. We love our nature, and we do go for country walks and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm always slightly baffled by essential oils, and I never really understand what the term essential, how essential are they, and what does it mean. So I'm hoping that, Heather, you're going to help clear that up, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who has heard of all of this but is relatively new to it.
Okay, so the term essential oil, it's explanatory and also misleading. That we
Right.
use the term essential as in essence, so it's an essence that comes from or is developed within the plant. So when we say essential oil, the oil part is the bit that's misleading because they're not oil, they're not oil-like. They're actually volatile chemicals that are extracted from plants, collection of plants that's been distilled usually, and the essential oils are siphoned off, but they're very volatile. So they aren't sticky and they're not sort of resinous as such. So they're not like an oil on the skin. They're actually very drying to the skin. So it's sort of, I suppose, the element that they're like oils is that they don't mix with water. So they will float on top, they coalesce, or they sink to the bottom. So like oil, they are not water compatible. So they look like drops of oil on water. But
Right.
yeah, so that is the connection. But they are extremely compatible with our bodies. As you mentioned before, they are elements of nature. They're coming from different plants, different trees, resins, blossoms, fruit peel, um, spices, leaves, or the various parts of the plant that essential oils develop within. And so we extract the essential oil from the various parts of the plant. And in those various parts of the plants, they have a role. So if it's in the leaves, for example, it's to deter predation or to attract certain animals because they will disperse and propagate. The same with flowers. Flowers tend to be very beautiful and attractive to attract insects. And each flower has a particular scent, which will attract particular types of insects. This is why there's so much variety within the different tones and qualities of perfumes that plants will exude. It all has a purpose. So there's an attractant aspect that you find in fruits because you want to disperse seeds, etc., and flowers and blossoms, and then the leaves attract or repel. The roots, again, they tend to be sort of attractant to a certain microbes. to support the soil, to support the nutrients that will look after the plant, and also to stop fungal infection. So all of those elements actually work with us as well.
Do they? Well, I mean, that's very encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so let me ask you this. Sorry, I have itchy nose for some reason. I need to get some essential oil on it. So, I mean, obviously, some plants and what have you, we eat. So we digest them, and presumably we're eating the oils as part of the plant. But this goes further than just digestion and passing it through the gut, because you're heating up these oils into the atmosphere. So you're breathing them in, or you're rubbing them on your body, on your skin in different ways.
Yeah.
So obviously there is more to this than just having a quick munch on something.
Yes. Okay. So there is a journey with essential oils. So you're describing plants that have a scent. So we're talking about herbaceous oils,
Right.
with fruits and foods and what have you, that have essential oils within them. But they have the essential oils are within the plant amongst other elements as well, such as the flavonoids and other aspects that are not distillable. And also they're present within a plant in minute quantity. So in terms of the ratio of plant material and other elements and chemicals, the essential oils are quite small, but there's a balance there. So some of the perhaps more irritant aspects of an essential oil would be quelled by the flavonoids or other things. So when we eat food and we're digesting essential oils, they have an impact. They have a medicinal impact. They have a nutritional impact, and they work in that way. When we extract essential oils, we're getting together hundreds of pounds of plant material, and then we're extracting the small amounts of essential oils that come from the plant material. You'd have several hundred pounds would yield maybe a couple of ounces of essential oil. So what you've got there is a highly concentrated version of the essential oil that you would have in the plant. But not only that, the process of extraction changes the essential oil. So the essential oils in the plant are not the same as the essential oils that you extract, because you go through a process. And as you described before, you're going to heat to break open the glands that hold the essential oils within the plant. We use heat or pressure, and that separates the most volatile elements. So the most volatile are terpenes, for example, the sesquiterpenes, monoterpenes are usually released first, and that's followed by lesser volatile. So you get this sort of progression, but you leave behind non-distillable elements, resins and what have you. So you're taking the essential oil out. Also the process, as you said, the heat can change the dynamic of an essential oil, because as soon as an essential oil is exposed to oxygen and light, UV light, it starts to change. It starts to not deteriorate, but it changes its chemical structure. So it's a sort of volatile and sort of permanently mobile in its nature because of that volatility. So so the essential oil that comes into the bottle is highly concentrated, and it's just the most volatile components of the essential oil. And that isn't quite the same, exactly the same. So while we can look at the plant and take indications from the plant, if we're looking at it from a herbaceous perspective, we can take indications from the herbal element of the plant and apply them to the essential oils, but you cannot do that completely because they
Right.
are a slightly different combination. So they have slightly different actions. And one of those, there's good and sort of negative, and the negative, not to be negative, but essential oils can be very drying and irritating to the skin and the mucous membrane. And that's also because they're in high concentration. So we always advise to take them in small amounts and to apply them to another medium, such as a vegetable oil or a cream, to lessen any irritant effect. So they're a drying collection of various chemicals, volatile.
So presumably, if you've got a small amount and you put it into a base oil of some description, it will go further. So it's not too concentrated on the skin, for example.
Definitely. So you're dispersing it, but you're protecting the skin as well.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're also allowing the molecules to penetrate into the skin as well. because they both, the skin is both water loving and fat loving, and essential oils have molecules that are water loving and fat loving. So an essential oil doesn't penetrate into the skin in its whole form, it breaks down into those components. So the fat loving will probably permeate quicker than the water loving. But the putting them into a base oil or a base cream prevents evaporation as well, and then allows a barrier to the skin to stop, excuse me, the essential oils from irritating the skin, but also enable the essential oil to penetrate. And penetration can take a few hours. So it's not, and again, it's not the whole oil, it's those molecules that find their way through the skin barrier into the.
Oh, I see. So your base oil may just sit on the top of the skin,
Yeah.
but the essential oils, even though they're within the oil, they separate and come into the
Yeah,
skin and then
yeah.
do what they do.
Yes, yeah, because they're a different chemical.
Yeah.
They're not the molecules aren't as large. They're smaller than
Right.
the base oil. So they've
Oh,
got
I
smaller
see.
molecules, and those that enables them to penetrate through the pores and into the skin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose it's something that I'd never thought of before, that in a way the skin is a bit like a sieve, but a very, very fine sieve,
Yes,
letting in things that are useful and things that are less useful
yeah, and
in there.
expensive as well. So yeah,
Yes.
very
Because,
useful.
yes, of course, it's pushing stuff out naturally.
Yeah.
Um, and just to sort of finish off on the food bit, presumably the essential oils will be in plants and trees or wherever it's come from, in things that you wouldn't eat, so that you wouldn't normally be able to get those essential oils if they're in things that you would normally perhaps wouldn't eat. But the essence of that plant
Yeah.
is very useful to us.
Yeah. This is where I mean, there's a few psychotropic plants, for example, that you wouldn't want to eat, but you could extract. I mean, CBD oil, CBD
Right.
is an example of that.
Yeah.
You leave behind the sort of psychotropic element, but you're extracting out. I think you extract CBD oil several times to get out those elements, but you wouldn't necessarily eat. Well, it depends on who you are. You wouldn't want to eat the leaves, but
Right.
there are certain plants that if you do eat them, they are toxic and poisonous.
Yes.
And
Could
there
you
are,
give us?
sorry,
No, go on.
I was going to say, and there are certain essential oils that you just would not use either on the skin or use
Right.
at all in aromatherapy. So there are several hundred plants that exude essential. Not all plants, but many plants will exude essential oils or have essential oils within them to varying degrees. But there are only probably 100 or maybe 150 oils that you would use therapeutically. And even within those, you bring that group down to those that are less harmful, those that are more toxic. The more toxic ones tend to be used in medicine. So again, in small amounts, sometimes something that can be a poison in a tiny amount can have a medicinal effect. But
In the same way that homeopathy works.
yeah. Well, in a way, because it's about I suppose the intensity of the poison.
Right.
So you just have a tiny bit, like a tiny amount, and it would do no harm, but it could have a medicinal effect. But in order to use oils like that, you really need a good background knowledge of the body and of the chemical interaction. So those oils aren't in my companion
Right.
collection. I'm
Yes.
staying within a nice safe range that I know I can apply safely, topically, and I don't advise ingestion of essential oils. That's not because you can't, but because you do need some pharmaceutical, not pharmaceutical, but chemistry. You need to understand
Yes. I
chemistry.
suppose to a degree, it's a bit like going around eating mushrooms. Unless you know which ones you shouldn't eat,
Yeah,
you could get yourself into trouble.
absolutely.
And yet, there's a beautiful range of mushrooms that will do all
Yeah,
sorts of things.
yeah.
Do you get, just as on that, do you get essential oils from mushrooms?
No, not as far as I know.
No.
No.
I suppose it's a different type of plant, isn't it? Being a fungus or
Yeah.
a fungi.
Yeah. I'm
So
sure you can extract something from them because they do have
yes.
a scent. Anything that has a scent has got essential oils in. But I haven't come across any essential oils that are mushroom essential oils.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So could you just give us a vague idea of the sort of most the things that the essential oils that most people would associate which plants would come from, and then perhaps a couple of unusual ones that make people go, "Oh, that's interesting."
Hmm. Well, I can, there's a whole range of different.
I'm sure.
Where do I start? So all the fruits like citrus fruits, for example, oranges, the peel of the citrus fruit, um, they obviously you can smell them straight away. You can
Mm,
break open the little sacs and you can smell the essential oil. And then if we're looking at the citrus family, we get a useful kind of cross section. So from the leaves and twigs of the citrus tree, you get a petitgrain, which is slightly different. It has a sort of citrusy scent, but it's slightly different. You've got a woody tone to it.
right.
From the blossom, you get neroli, which is a very sort of it's beautifully calming, it's very uplifting, it's very sweet, but it has a sort of citral tone to it. So you've got three types of oil there, and then there's resins such as myrrh and frankincense. So that oozes from the bark, and then you can distill that and create an essential oil from that. And then there's the leaves and twigs of say cypress or tea tree. And they tend to have a different role. Tea tree is quite famous, isn't it? A lot of people know that it's antimicrobial.
And I guess the list is quite extensive.
On and on. Herbs,
Yeah.
I mean, the herbaceous family, deliver beautiful essential oils, and they tend to be sort of very good for the metabolism and what have you. So yes, so roots, for example, such as ginger and vetiver, they are very grounding psychoemotionally, but all essential oils are antimicrobial to varying degrees because that's the role they play within the plant. So
Right.
some are more so than others, but that's one of their roles, and they are all psycho-emotionally stimulating in one way or another, whether that's calming, grounding. So they have this sort of cross section. There's skin healing. All these are things that essential oils do within the plant. They do within our body as well. So I
Gosh.
think I've covered enough there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So now, in your book, your books, one is on healing in particular, and then the other one you've got here is about mindfulness and meditation. So let's just start with mindfulness and meditation, because a lot of people are doing that and getting into it and understanding about calming down. So how do you use the essential oils? Presumably you can buy them. We'll get onto the potential of making them because that sounds a little bit more involved, but
Yeah, yeah.
that does sound fun, if you've got the time to do it. Because in your books you've got lovely illustrations of the distilling process and all of that, which all looks very exciting. But in terms of the simple way that most people would start to get involved with essential oils
Yeah.
in having them in the atmosphere, presumably when you're calming down and meditating.
Yeah.
And I guess again each one will have a different purpose.
Yeah, a different effect. And so, okay, so the thing with meditation and essential oils, though essential oils do complement the process, obviously meditation is something that you're doing, you practice. It's something
Mm,
you practically do yourself. Essential oils sit beside that. They can have an influence on your mood and emotion. So they can, if you're feeling tired, for example, you could perhaps choose an essential oil before you sit and meditate so you don't fall asleep while you meditate. That
right.
might be stimulating. You can also apply essential oils like frankincense and like myrrh and like sandalwood, patchouli as well, that sort of bring a calmness to you, but also help you to breathe more clearly. I find that frankincense and patchouli have this physiological effect which isn't psychological, it's physiological, that it sort of helps to deepen the breathing. So that you're taking sort of calmer, deeper breaths, which is also conducive to sitting and preparing to meditate, but also it
Mm,
oxygenates the body. So it's just that sort of triggering effect. It's not magic. It's sort of like it has that sort of if you've got more oxygen in your system, you feel clearer and calmer. Um, yeah, so and you can choose so all tree oils, for example, are very, very good for breathing. And therefore they do help with meditation. But meditation, essential oils can help you to focus, to be calm, to concentrate and to focus. So rosemary, for example, is a very good concentrating, focusing. And it really depends on where you're at when you want to sit and meditate, or what you want out of the estate. But they are very, very complementary because of that psycho-emotional dynamic. Sometimes we can sit to meditate and we're feeling agitated. And so it can take us some time to get into that mode of just sort of wanting to be calm. And the essential oils can bring that to you. They can sort of, I mean, I still love that effect of just taking a whiff of, for example, frankincense, and just feeling calm inside, feeling grounded. So they have that ability to bring you into the present moment as well, because immediately you're breathing in the scent, you're focusing on your breathing, you're in the moment, you're here and now. And so there's all of those little gifts that they add, and they can support you while you meditate.
And I'm guessing that each oil, depending on what it is, will have a different strength or potency as you warm it up as an aromatic.
Yeah.
And so some will be more subtle, presumably, than others.
Yeah. Yeah. So we categorize essential oils into three very general modes. So we've got what we call top notes, middle notes, and base notes. So the top notes are very volatile. They're more volatile than the base notes, for example. So you can evaporate those into the room or on a tissue. They will disappear very quickly. But they're also very uplifting. You get a hit from them immediately. And then, so you'd have citrus oils sit within that. So grapefruit, mandarin, bergamots, pine actually sits within that as well, because the pine is terpene rich, but the scent disappears very quickly. But that has that lovely sort of brightening, awakening effect. Base notes tend to be grounding. They are the slowest to evaporate, so they linger the longest. But they also have that effect on us psycho-emotionally, because they're steady and stable, and they tend to be settling. And we associate quite a few of those base notes, like frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood, rose, even ylang ylang. But those sort of base notes are typically used in spiritual or sort of religious ceremonies. They're used as sort of perfumes as well in that context. I mean, frankincense was wafted around in churches. It's been done for centuries, hasn't it? And really, what they're doing in a way is they're sort of hijacking the frankincense, because of this effect it has on slowing the breathing down and creating calmness and peace by sort of wafting it around the church. So you mentally and emotionally associate perhaps the sermon or perhaps the environment with that feeling as well. So there's a little bit sort of a little bit of aiding their capture of you within that context, I suppose, as well. But I mean, it's a beautiful gift that it
Yes.
is to us. Yes, yeah.
You mentioned there with the frankincense and the myrrh being wafted around, and it strikes me that smells or odour has a huge effect on your memory.
Yes.
I mean, when I was much younger, I used to, when I left school, one of the first jobs I did was working in the printers.
Yes.
So if ever I get a whiff of passing a printing place and I just smell, I am transported straight back to those days, and it's like, oh wow, and that is amazing. So presumably some of these smells, these odors that you're subjected to, can transport you to different places if you've experienced them before.
Yeah, that can have positive and negative effects, but particularly if looking at, say, for example, meditating, you can sit and meditate with a particular odor, say frankincense, and then you can then use that as a perfume or smell it later on, and you're immediately you remember that state of peace and calm that you were in. So it has that double effect. So yeah, so there's an immediate effect with that, and then you've got historical memory as well. So yes, so for example, orange juice reminds me of being a child and drinking orange juice in the summer. And you can have unpleasant memories as well, and sometimes that can get in the way of wanting to use an essential oil. So sometimes I'll pull out an essential oil for a client, for example, and looking at the therapeutic value of it, believing that it would fit with that person, and then they go, oh no, that reminds me of my grandmother or something like that.
Right.
But then if
Yeah.
they sit and smell it and transcend or go beyond that, they can say, oh, well, actually, it's not so bad. But that initial response is very, very strongly entrenched within us, because essential oils enter when we're smelling an essential oil, where the molecules are triggering off a neural response with the olfactory system, the olfactory hairs at the top of the nose, that send a neural message into the limbic area of the brain. And in the limbic area, you've got the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and then you've got a connection between the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, which releases hormones. Therefore, you get that triggering hormonal effect of the parasympathetic nervous system, so calming down. But the hippocampus is in the memory, the memory center. So there is a very strong connection between the sense of smell and memory, and that's also part of our survival. Because when in ancient times when we've foraged, we needed to know immediately, what something would do. Is it a medicine? Is it toxic? Is it going to kill us? And so, can we eat it? So we learned how to distinguish what was good and not good for us through our sense of smell. So that's very strongly wired within us. And so we have a similar reaction. So I use that aspect when I'm working with clients as well, because I do a consultation, I listen to their story, I get a background idea of where they're coming from, what they want, and I will choose a selection of oils that I believe will perhaps work with them. Then I always get my clients to smell the oils, because their body knows intrinsically what is good for them and what is not. And that can change from day to day, from month to month, or it can just be a physiological aversion because it's not good for them, but that very, very instinctive, intrinsic elements that's wired within us, we can still tap into and use, but it's very significant anyway. But
I mean, that's interesting, because I was just wondering there as you were speaking whether, because we've moved into towns and cities and we no longer, most of us, live in the countryside, do we're not really exposed to those natural smells anymore. So with your clients, presumably a lot of them will smell these things for the very first time and experience something quite wonderful, because they've never smelt anything like it. Is that it? Have we lost that sense, or does this switch us back on into
well,
our natural
yeah,
ability?
it does, because it's always there. We've
Right.
got centuries and centuries. I don't know,
Yes.
is there wired within us, within our DNA. We've gone through well, we all know the story about the Industrial Revolution and the way things have changed, and how we have been brought away from our naturalness and our natural selves and away from nature, so that we end up in industrial complexes like cities, and we're no longer foraging, we're no longer growing our own food, and over the time, with generation after generation, we have lost that intrinsic knowledge that we just inherited, or that was around us all the time, that we would do naturally. We've lost it. So personally, the reason I was attracted to essential oils was, in a way, it was my journey back. It's my journey back into my sensual understanding of nature. I wanted to, from being quite young, I didn't want to be a nurse as such. I've always been quite, I've had an aversion towards that way of doing things. But I knew that, there was something about my personality that, hence I'm attracted to doing what I did. And I learned, to meditate when I was 17. And then through that, I got to know a lot of people. I was very young and naive, but I got to know a lot of people who were attracted to that, who were also into complementary and alternative medicine. So I learned a lot from interacting with them about this it was called alternative in those days, but it's now coined as being complementary. But I learned, I was reintroduced to that potential and that possibility. So I learned about most of the, acupuncture, homeopathy. I learned about the principle of all of those things because I was really interested. And there's a thread with all of them. There's an energetic thread. It's just a different version. It's just you're working with energy. But I found myself very attracted to, I ended up working for Robert Tisserand. He asked me to work, I was working in Selfridges when I was a teenager, and Robert was just setting up his business. And we all knew each other because we were all part of the same meditation group. So there's quite a few of us, Andrew Lockie, Robert Tisserand, just a lot of people gathering in those very early days. And Robert was just setting up his essential oil business. So he asked me if I'd go and work for him. So yeah, I was quite happy to leave the office at Selfridges Lewis's. I was a junior secretary. And because I remember sort of sitting there thinking, is this it? Is this it? You know, have I sort of learned all of this stuff just to be doing this every day?
Yes.
I was sort of pushing it aside or saying it's not a good thing to do, but it was just, I haven't found myself yet. I'm not doing, it's not sitting with me. So when Robert invited me to go and sort of help him with this sort of fledgling business, I went, you know, a lot less money, but it was so worth it.
Yes.
It sat with my heart. It sat with, you know, what my way of being. And so I sort of, through that, and through that interaction with Robert in those early days, I sort of got what I realise now was an incredible insight. Obviously, in those days, you're just taking everything as it comes along. You don't realise how things are going to pan out.
Mm.
But I learned a great deal. So I was introduced to this very sensual, to all these different essential oils, and it sort of really sat with me. And so I saw that as my vehicle then. I enjoyed learning about all the other things, but I also see that there's an element of all of it within using essential oils. But for me, it sat with my personality, and I think if you're going to do anything, you find something that sits with you that you can relate to, you can feel something for as well. I think that's important. So yes, so that's also doing that took me back into my own intrinsic memories, but also I needed to do that, and I think we all do. And this is where essential oils are really brilliant. Yes, we can use them for the pleasure, but it reintroduces us to our senses, and you know, we start to tap into. So in a very lovely way, we start to tap back into those intrinsic feelings and you know, all those you know, those healing dynamics. So yeah.
And I guess, I mean, we don't, you know, because we have moved away from nature, and we spend so much time indoors these days rather than outdoors, and even outdoors we're surrounded by fumes from all sorts of factories and cars and what have you. We probably don't know as a population in these towns what these smells, these aromas, and the health benefits are from them. So it's probably quite a surprise when people go, wow, there's actually a whole new world out there that I've yet to explore.
Well, then it takes you down the pathway. Then you know, you naturally sort of move on from essential oils into herbalism. You know, because you want to know,
Yes.
this is what this, you know, if this sort of scent of the citrus oil is doing this, or if this is what mint is doing to me in terms of clearing, peppermint, you know, another good meditating one that clears your sinuses, sort of eases your breathing. What else is it doing? You can also feel just from smelling it, it has a digestive impact. I can settle my digestive system just by smelling peppermint. So then you think,
Wow.
well, what's going
Yeah.
on? But then you naturally start to look at herbs and other sort of healing plants. And then you go back into a journey of, well, how do they grow? What do they need? You know, where
Mm.
do they grow? And I cover all of this in my books because this is the journey I've been on in learning about essential oils and going backwards and learning about where they come from. But it's a lovely journey to take us back to nature
Yes.
with
Yes.
me.
We are so far removed from nature at the moment that
Very much so. Yeah.
it is essential to get back there. So let's talk about the healing aspects
Mm.
then, because I can absolutely get the. And most people would say, yes, it's nice to have a nice aroma around you, helps you concentrate, all those sort of superficial things, I suppose, as some people might think.
Yeah.
But there's something else happening with the aroma, or indeed the practical placing on you, the sort of is it topographical? Is that what you?
Topical, yeah, topical
Yeah,
application, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so like I said, I don't advocate internal, but we put it on the skin, it absorbs through the skin, or we inhale.
Mm.
So there are three or four main, I suppose, qualities to essential oils. So they have a psycho-emotional, spiritual impact, which we've just been speaking about. They work with the microbiome, so they have an antiviral, antimicrobial, as they do with the plant, antifungal. So they work like that within the body as well. They have that. They're also anti. I can't think of the word. It's just gone from. It's gone from me. Ah,
So it'll come back to you.
calm. It's ah. Oh, that's just going to drive me nuts. But
Yes.
anti-inflammatory.
Oh, I'm simple. Oh, yes.
Anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know why that just eluded me.
And we get inflamed all the time with lots of,
Absolutely.
particularly the modern diets that we're eating, and even from things like electrical and magnetic frequencies,
Yeah.
which affecting us, and I mean the body gets inflamed all the time.
Absolutely, and for different reasons. And
Mm.
essential oils can be sort of counter that as well because they are anti-inflammatory. It depends on what's causing it.
Right.
You can't get rid of something, you can't get rid of inflammation if you've still got the cause coming into the body.
Yes.
That's external or whether that's through food. We need to look at our diet. So we have a sort of more alkaline and acid diet. There are just different elements. Certain foods create more inflammation. But essential oils, many essential oils are anti-inflammatory. It's part of their role within
Within the
the
plants.
plant.
Yeah.
So anti-inflammatory is quite at this moment, particularly because um, anxiety, depression, sort of sets the territory, a sort of an inflammatory territory within us as well. So essential oils, in their psycho-emotional capacity, can calm us down and then sort of put us into a state, stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system that affects our digestive system, affects our hormones and the chemicals, and sort of levels things off as much as it can. Um, but also, um, they they sort of work with the immune system as well, so that they trigger off a positive, as in a natural immune response that will quell inflammation. So we don't want our immune system to be overstimulated, which is what causes autoimmune disease. We want our immune system to work for us and then switch off. So
Right.
we'll work within that. But then there's sometimes, again, it's this complexity. It isn't just one thing, it's many things layered upon each other. So in terms of their, let's just say anxiety, for example, um, we can't always control what makes us anxious or what's going on around us. And we can use essential oils to help calm us down. And in that process, we are then removing the I suppose those things that would instigate this sort of chronic state of being inflamed within. Um, so there are very it's like you say, you're dealing with the anxiety to deal with the inflammation, or they can do it the other way around and they can physiologically deal with the inflammation. So we're looking at many oils, frankincense, myrrh, peppermint, petitgrain, geranium, lavender, particularly because that's a very easily accessible essential oil, anti-inflammatory. So that would quell. Obviously, there's different types of inflammation as well. So, if you cut yourself or damage or injure your tissues, you create inflammation. That's the body's way of dealing with it, fighting off any infection, and bringing healing to the cells, to the area. But then once that's been delivered and done its job, you want that inflammation to go away. Essential oils help with that healing process topically on the skin, but also internally. So it's just, yeah, but there's no one cure all for anything. You've got to look at everything that you're doing. So you look at your diet, your lifestyle, what's triggering this off, why is my body responding like this? And then you bring in sort of remedies, and part of that remedial can be, maybe I need to meditate, and, maybe I'll use lavender or frankincense essential oil. Maybe I need to change my diet. Maybe I've got too much sugary stuff because I'm comfort eating. There's all these
Yes.
other elements, or there's certain toxic relationship. It's complicated.
Yes, I can imagine.
I,
And that, I mean, that's where, you know, someone like you with books that people can go to and refer and look things up. I'm assuming, unlike the, say, the pharmaceutical industry that try to sell you a pill that will
yeah,
cure all ills, as it were,
yeah,
that and the illusion would be with a little white pill that you swallow it and within an hour you're fixed, as it were, which obviously doesn't really work. This is a much more gradual process as the body starts to work in its own time.
yes. So that's what real true healing is. So the pharmaceutical industry just goes in one symptom, one pill. And
Yeah,
you might get rid of your headache, might get rid of your pain, but does not get rid of the cause.
right,
And then what happens then, you're burying that expression because that expression's there to say, you need to deal with this. This is a red flag. There's something wrong. And if you ignore that, you cover it up, you get rid of the pain, it just disperses and it goes back into the body. And this is where cancer develops because it's
yeah,
not unattended or suppressed symptom. Whereas if we deal with our symptoms as they come along, but healing is a journey, definitely. And essential oils are wonderful companions along that journey. And you can use essential oils in your day-to-day life, but also in terms of helping you to walk through what you've got stored inside you as well. So it's a gradual process. Meditation does that as well. So if you're,
right,
sort of sitting and sort of focusing on your connection, your spiritual connection, yourself, your true self, it offsets other things that you can start to feel this doesn't belong to me. And essential oils have a similar effect, but they also offer. I think it's amazing that we have this wonderful planet, that we have this garden. It's self-supporting. It supports us. It's like we're born into this sort of basket of all these arms that hold us, and we've got nature. Nature can poison us. I'm not naive. I know it can be harmful, but also at the same time, we have everything that we need. Every remedy we need is around us. So we can, seek out, as we did, we would have foraged for a particular herb or root or what have you. And there's a thing about dealing with it as it comes and as it happens. And there's a thing about not recognizing what's going on with you and building up toxicity, building up, and that means emotions, physiological. And essential oils are sort of they're antitoxic. They have all of these dynamical effects that help us to unpeel, unwind all of those other elements. But I would obviously say essential oils are the physiological, they are the gift from the garden. And the giver, the creator, has given us that. But our connection with God, our connection with our spiritual self, is intrinsic within us. It's inseparable. And it's being aware of that inseparableness of God. We're breathed, we're breathed into life. And so when we meditate, we focus on our breathing, and we're with that. We're with I suppose, our source, our creation, or however you want to sense it or feel it. But then we
yes,
have around us all these gifts that we can use and apply to support us as well. And I love the way that essential oils and herbs, the food that we eat, and unfortunately, that's all being attacked. Not to go into the negative, but it's a reality. Um, yeah, which I find very sad. But I'm quite worried about, for example, the cloud seeding and stuff and the impact
yes.
being on everything. But like to maintain optimism, and yeah.
Where we've got to stay
Yeah.
optimistic. Now it
And
strikes me
what our
that
future selves as well. I was talking to somebody earlier about depression, and oh, I shouldn't be feeling depressed. But it happens. It's part of a rite of passage of working out
yes,
what we feel, and often we come out of a depression feeling different. But it's also about preparing. Okay, all of this stuff's going on around us. We might be going through a disaster, but it's also holding ourselves in a safe space so that we're prepared for our future selves. We're prepared to be ready and vigilant and available and the best that we can be, not just now, but as we travel through, and we're prepared for whatever's coming. We hold our space now, we hold the preciousness of being alive, and our calm space so that we stay well within that. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going on. It's all a bit crazy, but we're ready. Let's
Yes.
hold ourselves, and keep ourselves safe, nourished, and be ready to meet our future selves. Yeah.
And I guess as we start to recognise we're living in tough times, the old sort of easy commercial remedies that you get are no longer doing things for us. That it is making us ask questions and looking back to old wisdom.
Yeah.
I guess, like anything else, essential oils have been commoditized and commercialized, and you could probably go into a big chemist, say, without mentioning any names,
Yeah.
and buy what would seem on the face of it a collection of essential oils, which I guess, having spoken to you now in depth, would be just quite superficial and not really doing anything. And also, if you have no idea what you're doing other than giving yourself some nice aroma,
Yeah.
presumably then to get to grips with essential oils in a more serious or semi-serious way, or one way it's more truthful to you, do you need to go and see a practitioner, or can you take your books and then go online and source various oils, or indeed, as it does show in your book, to actually go and make some yourself?
Yeah, how to distill them yourself. It's quite well, it's simple, but yeah, definitely. Sorry, my throat's gone a bit dry. I've had a cold. Yeah, I put it down to the atmosphere.
Yes, I know. Well, I'm continually having to drink filtered water just to sort of keep mine moist.
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously you can go and buy essential oils off the shelf, and if you go into a chemist, it's usually things like eucalyptus, tea tree, peppermint, and lavender. You get those quite easily.
And are they okay? I mean, are they essential? Are they not? Are they? I mean, are they mass produced and so lose something?
Well, they're still essential oils, but it doesn't matter in terms of how they are produced because essential oils, there's no such thing as a therapeutic grade. People say, oh, this, you don't want to use that, you want to use this. What it is, it's about all the dynamics behind the essential oil, and you want to get an essential oil that's hopefully organically grown. The plants have been organically grown.
Yes.
You want them to have been distilled appropriately. So there's a difference between an oil that's being distilled commercially very quickly, so that you're just getting, I was talking before about top, middle, and base notes. So if you distill something to create a quick turnaround, to make profit,
Yes, and you can imagine that is what the commercial,
so
especially if they're cheap.
yeah. So you won't have all the elements, you won't have all the molecules that you would get if you distilled an essential oil for its maximum potential time. So that you've got
Right.
all those base notes, all those, last lingering. Because together there's a synergy that's created. So if you're only getting out 3/4 of the chemical molecules because you've done a quick turnaround, you're missing out on that synergistic effect of I would say, a more therapeutic, useful essential oils. So yeah,
Right.
so know where your essential oils are coming from, who's supplying them, where they get their oils from. Are they organic? Are they, genuine essential oils? Because as you inferred before, they can be cupped with other things. They're not necessarily pure. They might have something else in them. And sometimes you can bulk out essential oils, particularly expensive essential oils like rose, or oils that take a long time to distill. You can bulk them out with other. They're still phytochemicals, but you bulk them out with other things to make them cheaper, to raise your profit. So you
Yes.
know the background of the oil, where it's come from, who's supplying it, and
And is that easy to find out, that kind of information? Will it be on the bottle or something?
Well, the bottle should say pure essential oil, but that doesn't
Right.
tell you. That doesn't
No,
tell you
doesn't really tell you very
where
much.
it's come from. It
I
will
did.
it will still be an essential oil, but there's, as I just explained, there's a spectrum of what that means.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And do they have a shelf life?
Yes, they do. So because they're volatile, and it's to varying degrees, so as soon as you're taking them from the plant, they are changing.
Right.
They change with oxygen, they change with light, they change with heat. So every time you take the lid off, and that's why we have a stopper on the bottle, not just to let the drops out,
Yes.
but to hold back the evaporation. So they go through a process of oxidization, and this starts to change their chemical construct, as it were. And so that can render an oil more irritant. Sometimes in perfumery, so if we're looking at rose or patchouli, for example, age can sometimes almost improve the scent. But when
Right.
we get it therapeutically and from the perspective of are they going to be irritants or not? An essential oil, basil, for example, will become very irritant. Rosemary becomes more sort of has more of a cineal camphor. It becomes more camphoraceous, and there are certain chemicals that are more irritant to the skin and the mucous membrane. So as as molecules are leaving, you're left behind sometimes with elements that you can smell. So shelf life. So a citrus oil, once you've opened it, they are the most volatile. They're the top notes, so they deteriorate quickly. So 6 months from opening, bergamot maybe a bit longer, and keep them in a fridge, all of them, all essentials. Keep them cool, keep them dark, keep the lids on, and then you're slowing that process down. Herbaceous oils, probably 12 months. It depends on the oil. Like I said, rosemary and basil will, if they're exposed to oxygen, they deteriorate and can become irritants. But so we go back to the base notes, they will last a bit longer. So I've got a rose that I've had for years. I don't use it therapeutically, I use it as a perfume. If I'm using oils on other people and I'm using them therapeutically, I tend to stay within the sort of 6 month top note essential oils, 12 months, and then maybe a bit longer, but I'm smelling the oil. I know where it's at.
Yes, you work with it all the time,
And
so
I
you're
will
gonna.
not use. I would rather put aside an oil than use it therapeutically. I'm very strict with that because
Yes.
I have I have a responsibility basically to care for whoever I'm working with. But I personally have got a sandalwood and a rose oil and a patchouli oil that I wear as perfumes that I still love. But I don't put them on my skin. I put them on my clothes.
Right.
So
And I'm guessing, other than commercial, I mean, we haven't really touched on perfume. Being a bloke, I suppose I don't really use much, or any. But I guess this is another use for those essential oils, that you can wear it as a perfume rather than buying something off the shelf which has got alcohol and various whatever.
make your own perfumes.
Yeah, make your own.
You can do that aesthetically, but you can also do that therapeutically. And I
Right.
often will do therapeutic perfumes for my clients. For example, I might make up a blend and we use it on a massage. And then, if I've got something left or they need to have something to take with them, I will put up, for example, I've got roller bottles. So I put the essential oils with a base oil like jojoba or coconut oil or
Yeah.
beef, and then they can be just rolled on and used as a perfume.
Oh, brilliant.
Do that yourself.
Yeah. I
Also,
know Julia would love that.
yes, easy to do, but also our sense of smell is so personal. What one person likes, another doesn't like.
Yes.
And this is again why I always gauge before I do anything. I always check out with my client what they like and what they don't like. But for us as well, what I could say to you, oh, I love rose, and somebody would go, oh, it's so sickly. It's just too sweet. We all have a different
Yes. And
personality.
presumably one's own skin or bodies will react differently to it anyway.
Yeah, well, you're again, you're attracted to. I love it when I work with clients, and it's just so revealing of those who would like. I can put a rose on them and go, oh, that's awful, and then they'll smell a cypress and go, oh, that's gorgeous.
Right. Yeah.
But somebody else wouldn't like it.
Wouldn't like it. Yeah. No, I can see.
Yeah, so you find, when you're making perfumes, the beauty about it is you can explore yourself. You know what you like, and you can
Yes.
actually, it's fun. You can use your own sense of smell to create a particular dynamic or a particular story. Do you want something uplifting? Do you want it to be floral? Do you want it to be spicy? You can play with it. And so, again, go to my books and I give all of that, all the information about how you can do that, and then also information about each or 58 essential oils in my current books. That there you can look at the background, their background story, and then you can then decide you might want to go and buy that oil and try it.
Yes.
But it gives you the safety aspects, etc., and personality. So we all have personalities. Scents have personality. So it's like inviting them to the party, isn't it? Who do you want
Yeah, absolutely.
to
But that's brilliant. So you mentioned your books. Let me just show them up one more time. So here we got Healing and Essential Oils,
Yeah.
which is beautifully illustrated, I have to say, as well as all the knowledge and everything else. And it goes into some wonderful explanations and things all about it, which is really good. And it's got
That journey from plant to bottle. So that book, all of my books have been, because I obviously I've taught at university and I've written courses. I'm very, very conversant with what people need to know in terms of
yes,
qualifying as an aromatherapist, and also what they need to know in terms of safe practice or effective practice. So my books, I've made, it's almost like, not that it's a substitute for traditional learning, but you have at hand everything you need to know so that you understand the nature of essential oils and how
yes,
and best to apply them. So that book that you've just shown, Healing with Essential Oil, looks at the journey of essential oil from plant to bottle, so that it's got the botany, it's got the chemistry, so that it's got sort of the main chemicals and what they do, and how those chemicals have a different scent to them, and how that combinations of chemicals create lavender or patchouli or what have you. And then it's got 58 overviews of individual essential oils. And the middle book, and I'll show this one because I didn't send it to you, is
okay.
essential
Essential Oils Whole Body.
body. And that one I've got information about the different systems of the body, how essential oils are absorbed and excreted, and what they do within the body. And also I've got a chapter on blending. So
Oh, right.
aesthetically or blending therapeutically, so that it just gives you a sort of like a starting understanding or comprehension of how to put certain oils together and how to build up a scent that to your liking. And then I also bring in with this book the subtle elements, so color, and as I said before, when you're looking at complementary medicine, you're looking at acupuncture, um, looking at other homeopathy, you're looking at subtle dynamics.
Right.
You see that all of these elements feed into the way that we use plants or the way that we use.
I can see that people can have a lot of fun. Even if they're just doing it sort of just for the fun of it, rather than thinking of a career or anything like that. It's just
Yes,
experimentation
I
and
enjoy it.
creating
Yeah.
and moving away from having to continue to rely on somebody else to produce something. The enjoyment in it. Your last one here is, I guess, a more practical thing for people
Yeah.
who are into mindfulness and meditation,
Yeah.
and all of that. We're running sort of out of time, unfortunately. Do you have a website that people
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
go?
So
And I'll put the link in the description, of course.
thank you.
Um,
It's www.aromantique.co.uk. That's my website, and I've got blogs on there. I've got information about essential oils. I've written articles, so it's kind of like a go-to place. My books are published by Inner Traditions, as I said before, and they're available online. They're available at anywhere you want.
Brilliant. I'll put links to them on, probably on a big commercial online
Yeah.
place, just for the ease of many people. But I guess they can also buy them through your website, can they, if they want to?
Because I do it through a publisher,
Right.
I'm not self-published, so so basically,
It's no difference.
I get
Yeah.
2 copies. That's it.
Right.
And
Fair
basically,
enough.
I buy my own books.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for sending these to me. Julia and I have been
Well,
reading up, and it's something Julia's particularly interested in. So, rather than going down to the chemist and sort of just buying them off, we've been looking at where we can. It's that thing when you go through, say, spring and everything's in blossom, and it's like, oh yeah, look at all of this.
yeah,
What does that do? What does that do? So it can be very exciting.
it is.
Um,
It's
Thank you. I was just rounding.
taking
Yeah, it is.
the onus of control back to ourselves, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I would say that so many times in the shows that I produce, and with many of the guests, that it is the fun of taking back control. We've given away so much to other people,
Yeah.
and it's nice to stand on our own 2 feet and go, hey, I can do this.
Yeah, and there is a joy in that. There is the sort of like excitement. There's all of those elements that
Absolutely, we are creative
thumbs down,
beings.
aren't we?
Yeah.
We're very creative, and this is the lovely thing about essential oils. It really brings out that creativeness within us. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Heather, thank you so much for being my guest and telling us about essential oils. I've been through an absolute education. You can say, I mean, the hour went so quickly, and I dare say there's huge amounts. I mean, we didn't even get onto how you sort of extract them and all of that. That's sort of a magic of its own, I'm sure. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And to the audience, do go and check out the website. Link will be in the description and the books. And if anyone does manage to make any of these essential oils, do let me know. It'd be fascinating to see what you make of it. But, I will be back, of course, with more monologues and more wonderful interviews. But for the moment, thank you for watching. Big thanks to Heather for telling us all about it. And so from us both, thank you for watching and goodbye.